And good evening, and once again, welcome to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. And since it's Monday night, and you've checked your watch, you know what time it is. It's time for new comics, bitches! Well, we've just had the wrap-up of Emerald City Comic Con, and we've had some interesting announcements coming about from that. Some that I don't really care about, some that I do, and just pretty good stuff, man. The biggest one for me, which I'm sure that a lot of you will share my sentiment about this, is that I've never given a crap really about. I mean, I did for a while read Conan the Cimmerian when I know Richard Corbin was doing artwork on that. I can't remember who else was. I can't remember who was writing it though. But I was reading that for a while. But I've never really given a crap about kind of the sword and sorcery comics until now, because it was announced at ECCC that Gail Simone will be writing Red Sonja for Dynamite Comics, which to me is, I've never cared because it's always been, it's kind of been Red Sonja to me has kind of just been kind of screaming, male fantasy, whatever, and that's fine sometimes. But to have a woman writing it and to have this revolving team of women doing the cover art, like the first piece of art, which has been around the internet a lot, the first cover going to be done by Fiona Staples, and it looks awesome, and I wish that she was doing the interiors, but she's busy with Saga, as well she should be. Yeah, so that was a really cool announcement. It's my understanding that Matt Wagner, who is currently writing the Shadow Year 1, will also be writing 8 issues of the Shadow ongoing series, which should be interesting to see where he takes that. Because I think that overall he may have a slightly better handle on the character than Garth Ennis or certainly Victor Gischler has right now. So that to me is pretty exciting. We were treated today to I don't know if those of you who frequent comicsalliance.com or who follow people like Greg Rucka or Ed Brubaker on Twitter, kind of pointed out that the first couple pages of his new book of Greg Rucka's new book with Michael Lark, his new creator-owned book Lazarus, they're going to be doing, I believe, for Image, hit the internet today, and oh man, does that look awesome. Just the first 4 pages, like, okay, this is definitely in Rucka's wheelhouse. So, all in all, I mean, it wasn't, there was nothing nothing too major, like huge creator shifts. There was announced that there was a Pandora ongoing series that was going to become part of the New 52. It was announced that, it came out today, actually, that the Scott Snyder, Jim Lee Superman book is going to have its own name, and it's Superman Unbound, I believe, is the title, and this is going to be focusing a lot on also on the supporting cast and not just Superman himself, because he does have two different comics out there already, and it will indeed, the first issue will come in June, coinciding with the release of the new film, and it will have backup stories written by Snyder and art by Dustin Nguyen, which will be really cool because I don't recall the two of them working together, but I do love Nguyen's work, particularly on Batman Little Gotham. It's been a really, really fun digital first. But anyway, let's get into this week's comics, and maybe we'll pick more of that stuff up later. So we're going to start, as we normally do, with Marvel. And we're going to start right off with a title that I'll be dropping. There were some books that did come out this week that I would probably normally review, but to be perfectly honest, there was one that I decided it was just time to drop, and it was more out of a financial interest than anything, and that's Aquaman. Because there's other stuff that's coming out that I will wanting to be picking up. And I'll be picking up. There's two new things that are going to be coming in kind of the next wave, which is going to be Green Lantern Corps by Fialkov, and also Red Lanterns by Fialkov. So it was a book that it's really good. I mean, but this whole kind of Throne of Atlantis thing, because of its crossover with Justice League, kind of threw me off. So, and now I'm picking up Green Arrow. So it was just like I said, it was time for me to make a choice, and Aquaman just seemed like, unfortunately, kind of the natural choice because it's Aquaman. So anyway, starting with another book that I'm going to be dropping after this issue, and that's Uncanny Avengers #4. What a shame, too. Because we have here the skullified Thor, the mentally controlled Thor, is basically, of course, being used to fight, his friends. Namely, mostly Scarlet Witch and Havoc. And Red Skull is basically looking to cleanse New York City, and then falls the world of mutants, and basically, of course, it's because this is the ending of the first arc, so the team kind of really comes together at the end here, with the exception of Wolverine, who's still kind of pulped. But there's a lot of sleight of hand that Rick Remender does in this book with Skull. There's a scene where it looks like that that Havoc is really blasting away and punching away at Red Skull, but he's really doing it to Rogue. And you have this whole thing about with him, and particularly Captain America, where he's basically trying to sell him on the lie that Skull's world, his future and everything like that, which has some nice kind of shout outs to Days of Future Past, and it's just the problem with this issue, and it does have this really epic battle between Thor and Scarlet Witch, showing just how powerful Wanda really can be, which is something we've been missing essentially since kind of the No More Mutants of House of M. We've been missing kind of how powerful and what a great asset she can be, aside from the garbage that was Avengers versus X-Men. But anyway, so just remember, the main problem with this book is that it's paced very poorly. That Remender just kind of keeps browbeating you with this very not subtle imagery, with this very not subtle monologuing. How he's going to strip mutants of all sorts of rights and everything like that once he has control. And the mutants will beg to be ruled, and some images of basically what what America is like now, and who exactly is Captain America fighting for? These redneck know-nothings, basically kind of like the teabaggers, or your kind of your ultra right-wing fellows, and it's just. And then it gets to the ending. in which we have this just freakishly almost like, what the fuck is this supposed to be? Basically, you have your ending, and everybody's kind of taking stock, and they're saying, we'll be here for you if you need us, but if we're not, kind of look to each other. Havoc gives this kind of impassioned speech about community and everything like that, and how this team really can function, and Cap kind of gives Havoc a good pat on the shoulder, saying, you really held it together. You should be the one to lead this team. And then we have this ending, which takes place 3 months later, 3 months into the future, in which we see, again, almost this kind of where we see kind of this dystopian future almost starting to come true, that the Red Skull had laid forth, and it is because the Red Skull has become Onslaught. Really, we want to keep bringing more of the 90s characters, basically the time period that almost killed comics, back into the modern, the present day, because Onslaught didn't seem like a good idea when they created him, and really doesn't seem like a good idea now. And another sad thing about this issue is that John Cassaday's art feels really rushed. It doesn't have the kind of slick polish to it that it needs. And this is just not a book that's really in his wheelhouse. He does not do incredibly well on kind of because this is a very humorless book. It always, it has been since the first issue. There's not really much to speak of in the way of kind of the funny. And, even his work on Thor, on Planetary, Warren Ellis made with the funny every once in a while, and, you could really enjoy the book. But, here, and of course, as with me, Astonishing X-Men, Whedon, Cassaday, I mean, that was just genius work. It's one of my favorite comic runs of any comic ever. So, John Cassaday, this is just not the right book for him. And, again, for one of the flagship titles, it's the flagship title of Marvel now, again, it leaves a lot to be desired, much like Bendis's run on the main Avengers title left a lot to be desired. So, this is done. 2 out of 5 at best for Uncanny Avengers #4. Just could not get on board with it at all in this issue. It was just the kind of, I liked the first issue a lot, and then it just kind of kept falling down these stairs. Anyway, Punisher Warzone #5. Normally this would have been a book of the week, but unfortunately, it's the art. The art keeps hamstringing this book, and it's sad because if Marco Checchetto had been on this book, this would be, this would have been pretty much a 5 out of 5 just about every time. Because basically what we have here is we get, nicely, we get the explanation of how exactly Frank Castle stole the Iron Man armor, which, puts Tony back in the good old red and gold, which is just a much better look from a design standpoint, from a color standpoint. Stands out a lot more than the kind of gold and black that he has now, which is kind of, in my opinion, kind of ugly, but whatever. We get really more than anything, because it is the final issue where it's the Avengers versus the Punisher. All the 5 of them, with Spidey and Cap and Black Widow and Thor, just really all, putting, not or without Wolverine pretty much, because Wolverine is definitely kind of there in the background looking to help Frank, because Wolverine understands what he's doing, and that, we get really his, the best glimpse into Frank's kind of personal code of, of loyalty, of honor, and ultimately of sacrifice. That, he has done, that this was probably going to be the plan all along but that he was, but that the release of Rachel Cole Alves, is primary. And and even she has this moment where she says, but what about the missions? Like, and the Punisher says, basically, the mission, was never me. Is basically what he's saying, but when he says the mission was not a man this time, and basically he's referring to himself. At least that's the way that I read it. Is that it was all about her and about him getting her out. And of course the plan is to get her out of the country, someplace where she'll never be recognized, never be known, never be seen again. And yes, we do have a SmackDown where we do, of course, see the Punisher being very clever, being very, knowing that he's going to get beaten, but just using everything at his disposal to pull the focus on him so that Rachel can get away. And of course, we see, all of his clever tactics. We see, his, just his excellence at what he does. Of course, everything that he's doing is non-lethal because he recognizes these people are heroes. These are not the people that need to be punished at all. So that's always, the book has always been leading to this moment in which they do finally bring down Frank Castle, but it's on Frank Castle's terms. So even in a loss, it's a win. So again, this... I was watching Ghost Critic's review of this, and he does make some interesting points about how this doesn't really match up with the timeline because, this is out at the same time that Thunderbolts is going on, and that, Frank Castle is, he's not in this undersea prison, but rather he's part of the new Thunderbolts team, might actually even be the leader. I'm not really sure how that works because I'm not reading that book at all. I read the first issue and I said, yeah, this isn't really for me. But it does say, at the beginning, on the very first page where it gives the story synopsis, it says, this takes place before the events of Amazing Spider-Man 697, which does give us a good idea of, okay, this is when this took place. So how he gets from the prison, because this, it does take place within continuity, but does take place outside of continuity. The Punisher always has under Greg Rucka. So again, not always, because like I said, it's, he's done some brilliant work with the Punisher, and this is his finale. It's his, it's his conclusion to writing this character and to giving Rachel kind of her own mission and creating this great new, very powerful character. Because, one of the things that Greg Rucka does, and I've said this over and over again, is he creates really awesome, really powerful, really self-sufficient female characters. You just need to look to Whiteout, Queen and Country, some of his lead characters in Gotham Central. These are all very much in Rucka's wheelhouse. So, and the upcoming Lazarus looks like, again, this is going to be about another very powerful woman. So, hats off to him for making that pretty consistent and making the story very consistent. And it's a terrific, terrific conclusion. But again, just the art by Carmine Di Giamenco, however it's pronounced, it just does not work. It's too, it's too asymmetrical is the best word that I can put. Faces look like they're sometimes. So it just, the art, and it barely works, and that's sad. So but still, Rucka writes the hell out of it, and it's a really terrific conclusion to his run and basically where this book has been going, which is perhaps to creating another Punisher that will be way far away from New York, and this time in Los Angeles, and this time it's a woman, and it's Rachel. So 4.5 out of 5 for Punisher Warzone number 5. On to another, not book that I'm dropping, because I keep having this hope that this is going to kind of pull itself out, but that's Ultimate X-Men number 23. This book has been throughout, from the beginning, again, from the first issue of from the first issue of the Reservation X saga. This each issue subsequently has been kind of a decrease in quality, and that continues here. Because basically what we have here is the story of Aurora and what happens to her and Piotr after Camp Angel. She's on the run with Colossus, and they're trying to, so basically it's her view of everything, it's her point of view of all the events that led up to the confrontation between Kitty and Stryker, and the creation of, Reservation X and the cure and everything like that. And it's interesting. It's a well done issue from the standpoint of that it's told from her standpoint, but is just kind of sleepy. It just didn't really seem to have any momentum, because this is all stuff that we've seen happen on the page. So to see it happening from Aurora's point of view, because we already know that she's going to end up in the same place, doesn't give us that much more insight into where the series needs to go. Because basically my main issue with this is that this issue would have benefited so much more if it had actually focused on Piotr. If it had focused on Colossus and what happened to him after the murder that he committed, after he killed the guard at Camp Angel in cold blood. How does he go about this? I mean, we do deal with, obviously his guilt in regards to that, and that, everything that while he and Aurora are on the run, it's not a picnic, it's not a vacation. He is so kind of guilt-ridden by this that he feels the need to pay for what he's done. But when he's gone, when he leaves, that's it for him. We don't see him again. And, there is, kind of this moment where Aurora comes and checks, at the cure tent and to see if Peter took the cure. And he didn't. So, yay. But really, just from a dramatic standpoint, it would have been so much more interesting and so much more compelling of a story to read somebody who's not part of the group, to see what a complete outsider's view of everything that's going on around them would be, and how Piotr is surviving out there and what he's doing. It just would have been so much stronger. And Barberi's art, again, it's getting a little bit better. I mean, still it's a lot of, really thin waist, really big breasts, really curvaceous asses, and, again, that it's running its course here, and I want to see a different artist on this book, to be quite frank. There are obviously a lot of good artists out there that don't kind of, that are not constantly kind of hypersexualizing the women. So that to me it's a turnoff. So this book, just like I said, it's decent but not good enough for me to recommend. So this was a 2.5 out of 5 for Ultimate X-Men number 23. But a book that I can recommend very easily is Young Avengers number 2. Now, basically with this issue, we get Billy and Teddy kind of waking up the day after, Billy has brought Teddy's mom from the alternate dimension, and we see that she is obviously not who she appears to be. And when they wake up and, go down for breakfast and everything like that, they start to sense that something is really off about who this other mother is. And yes, there is some kind of control, and Billy does try to get her to go back from whence she came, but that spell is not working. And she even kind of creates a little kind of timeout room for the two boys. But they escape, and what do? They run to the Avengers, because the Avengers are clearly going to be able to help with this problem. They're going to be able to figure, you know, they got the brains, they've got the brawn, they have the people that can solve this problem, that can find out what exactly is going on with this mother, what she's done to Billy's parents. And nope. They are under the same kind of spell as everyone else around her is. So yes, the two boys do get thrown into kind of the, what I call the panel dimension, which is just these, you know, just kind of this white, boxy prison, and they are broken out by Loki. In just, I mean, incredibly creative fashion. I mean, it was just like, when I saw that, I'm like, that is so fucking cool. And so if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about as far as me calling it the panel dimension. It's just, it's a really, really smart thing. So Loki kind of, you know, brings Billy and Teddy back to the diner that he's been kind of hanging out with to help them solve their problem, but also to get them to pay his very large bacon tab that he's run up at this diner. And so they end up going to Asgardia, which is, you know, of course, Asgard on Earth, and they're looking to get, because Loki does believe that he has the answers, but they are confronted at the gates by Laufey. Isn't Laufey supposed to be dead? And that's just, you know, there is some talk about what's going on with Kate Bishop, with Hawkeye. But a lot of the other players are not here, and so there's, I think that's really, you know, with Kate and Novar and, you know, Miss America, we're kind of missing out on the rest of the band here, because we don't really get any of them this week, aside from this little mention about the text that Teddy has been getting from her. There's a great, you know, like I said, there's some great moments about where Loki, you know, discusses the name Wiccan to Billy, and it's like, you know, is that even really an appropriate name for you? Because you don't really seem, are you even a Wiccan? You know, it's just, I mean, it's moments like that. I mean, it just really seems like Kieran Gillen has an incredibly solid handle on this book. It, like I said, I mean, it doesn't have quite the verve of Heinberg and Chung when they started out, but it is getting to a point where the humor is a little bit more snappy. The creativity surrounding the book with Jamie McKelvey on art is really terrific. It's just, you know, it's this understanding and these great character moments that help to make this just a really, really, really solid title and a really solid issue so far. So 4.5 out of 5 easy for Young Avengers #2. Next one is one that I wasn't disappointed in, but I wanted something a little bit more. And that is Hawkeye #8. Basically what we have is that the mysterious redhead Penny turns back up, who, you know, he got his awesome Dodge Charger from, or Dodge Challenger. That was a Challenger, I believe. And we have, of course, that classic issue where they do meet, and, you know, this, of course, brings forth kind of the, you know, the tracksuit Draculas. And here we have her returning to enlist Clint's help and get him entangled in more romance to retrieve this contents of a safe, a very mysterious safe that we don't know what's in there. We, you know, Penny won't say what it is, but it becomes kind of a, you know, Hawkeye, you know, Clint becomes he goes into this kind of reluctant, heisty, capery mode, and, you know, they team up to get this safe back from a strip club that's owned by the Tracksuit Draculas, or by one of them, who seems to be kind of like the big boss of the Tracksuit Draculas. And Hawkeye, again, reluctantly, because he doesn't really want to get involved so much in this scheme, not because he doesn't want to get involved with her, because he's Hawkeye, but because, you know, this kind of, you know, he doesn't want to get too into payback from the Tracksuit Draculas because of kind of the threats they made against the people in his building and so on and so forth. So it's just, you know, we can sense his reluctance and good reason for it, but also we see this great moment at the very beginning where she returns and they're kissing, and, you know, he kind of turns his head and there's, you know, Black Widow, who he's been romantically entangled with. There's, you know, Mockingbird, of course, who he was married to, and Jessica Drew, who he was also dating. So it's like, so I mean, this is, again, this is the whole premise of his solo title, is that this is what Hawkeye does when he's not being an Avenger. And that is, of course, getting into all sorts of trouble. And as usual with Clint, it's over a woman. Whether it's Penny here, or whether it's with Kate, who he does enlist for a little bit, who kind of tells Clint to go to hell before he does this relatively stupid thing. But the use of these Annie Yu, who I'm not terribly familiar with as an artist, she does these every once in a while. She'll put in this full page spread of like this old style like romance comic, and these tie very specifically to the story that they're telling, not only by what's happening on the covers also is thematic, but they do have significance as to why they were sent to Clint by Penny. And they all, of course, have to do with the safe. Now, we do get, you know, these moments where we have, again, the issue ends with the kind of cabal of New York's, you know, biggest, most feared criminals, particularly the Kingpin and a lot of the other characters that we kind of met along the way, you know, like Madame Mask. We also see Typhoid Mary, we see Madame Mask, we see the Owl, we see Hammerhead. So, I mean, you have, you know, kind of the traditional, you know, kind of New York criminals, basically all, you know, and the, you know, kind of the leader of the Tracksuit Draculas is saying, you know, we are going to kill Clint Barton for you. Because they have all determined, basically, you know, even, you know, Mr. Negative is in there, that Clint Barton must die. He's embarrassed them, he's stolen from them, he's made them look really bad, and he's got to go. So at worst, you know, if the Tracksuit Draculas fail, they take away their territory. At best, there's a dead Avenger. And so, oh boy, and who is it going to fall to? And we get kind of a hint of that in the last panel. And what we have coming up, looking really exciting. So, I mean, again, the opening with, you know, all of the women there is such a great moment of illustrating who Clint is as far as his relationships with women are concerned. You know, he's kind of a horn dog. And, you know, we just see that distilled in just these couple of pages. And, you know, we see that he's always kind of getting himself into really hot water because of a woman. You know, we have from, you know, the woman that he got into hot water with initially, the Black Widow, when he was introduced. And then, you know, the woman that he got into hot water again with, you know, as far as, you know, being kidnapped by the Skrulls, and then becoming Ronin for a little while. And now, of course, you know, Jessica Drew, who you know, obviously seems to be a pretty turbulent relationship there. I don't know if I don't think they're still going to be dating after this, but we haven't seen her in this issue, and because we don't have a new Avengers title, or really an Avengers title that has kind of taken up the slack of that relationship, we don't really get that into it. So so I think that's a relationship that's kind of been not undone, but just this is kind of like the reminder, yeah, this is no longer really going on. And again, David Aja just slays on the art duties. In Fraction, I mean, he just keeps the book running really tight while playing it loose. Just a lot of these great character moments, some really strong plotting, and a lot of humor. And just some of the visual cues, like, all of the targets that Aja keeps putting on all of the clothing and everything like that. Even the kind of skull cap that Hawkeye uses, and just everything being in purple, and, like Penny kind of comes out of the shower with this kind of purple bathrobe, and it has all the kind of bullseye patterns around it. So it's just, I mean, to me, they're obviously having great fun with this book, even when the book decides to take kind of this serious turn. But again, this is the most independent of any book by the major titles. It is really staunchly saying, okay, we're pretty separate from the rest of the Marvel universe right now. But there's a lot of independent book sensibilities going on here. With the cast, with the art, with everything that they bring to it, which is very considerable. So but there was just something there was some little flavor that just was kind of missing from this issue. Is that I do love the predicaments that Clint gets himself into, and I do love the way that they usually come to a resolution, and I mean, there's a lot in this book to love. But it didn't kind of hit me in the sweet spot that this book normally does, especially with Aja on art. So it's a very, very solid 4.5 out of 5. It just missed this week. It really did. So on to the independents. So Jennifer Blood, number 23. Now, basically what we have here with this issue is that we see Jennifer kind of revisiting her past here throughout this book while she's in prison. Because obviously with, the last issue, we see that, she has been found guilty of all the crimes that she committed while she was Jennifer Blood. And we do see that she has really, in her first day in, she kills, 2 people who are, of course, out to kill her. So she gets herself thrown in solitary, and because she doesn't have anything to write with, she is writing her diary in her head. And she kind of keeps retelling the tale of Jennifer Blood from its initial kind of mission statement, and then it'll intercut between the past and what happened with with the Blutes, and with her father, and with her uncle, and her mother, and then we get it. Then we kind of get thrown back to the recent past. So we get the far-flung past, we get the recent past, and we get the present, all in this one book. And so we get in the recent past, we get kind of what happened with with Pruitt, and with the Ninjets, and with Ray Buick, and with everything that happened in the town, and what and how eventually Jennifer got brought back to New York to stand trial. And again, we still keep getting this this kind of one-page spread that is given to us every so often to retell the tale of Jennifer Blood again, as it catches more up to where we are. And one of the things that Al Ewing does brilliantly in this issue is how he explores kind of where she's come from, and how we've progressed from Garth Ennis's initial run on the book to where we are now. and that it all seems to run very, nothing seems counterintuitive about where this book has ended up. That, that there's something that, as Jen examines herself, she sees that maybe part of her is indeed sick, like her father was sick. And, as in psychotic. And, there's really only one ending to her story. And it's not just in prison. And we do maybe get that ending here. I mean, there are more issues to come. I don't know how many more. But the book will continue. But this issue certainly seemed to have a very final feeling to it. It was like, wow. Damn. I mean, so it'll be really interesting to see where this book goes from here. But for right now, Jesus. I mean, if it had ended with this issue, I would have no problem with that. Because this book, because of the way that this issue just really had kind of the sense of inevitability and finality about it, it's a totally captivating read. The art's a little, it's a little off. But by and large, this book, like Hawkeye, is a very, very solid 4.5 out of 5. Just missing it kind of by a hair, really. And, more is the pity, because this, Jennifer Blood has kind of, since Garth Ennis has left it, has gotten even better. And that is something I never thought was going to be possible. You can't go from Garth Ennis to somebody I have no idea who it is and have it be better. That's just not possible, but it is, and it's awesome. So for those of you who are not reading Jennifer Blood right now, get the trades. Seriously. Some of them are out already. Start getting the trades. They're really, really, really solid, intense, great reads, and that was one hell of an issue. Masks number 4. So basically, just kind of summing up here, the heroes are close to finding out who is behind the Justice Party. We obviously know what their aims are. Their aims are greed and kind of this almost fascist regime, but it is, but there is somebody behind all of this. There is someone that is still peeking out from behind the shadows and speaks to some of the other kind of subordinate villains through these maybe mystical, maybe technological kind of, mirrors that they're using. And basically we have the various separations of the groups of heroes. We have Green Llama and Black Bat, and we have Zorro and the blind guy, who I don't know, is the Bat? Is the pulp version of the Bat? We have, of course, the Shadow. He's basically trying to bring the band together. And we have, Black Terror or Crimson Terror, I don't know, him with Green Hornet, and all of this is going on, and therein lies the problem with this book, is that, you know me. I'm a big pulp guy. I love the pulps. I love pulp books. But here's the thing, is that this book is made for those of us who love the pulps, but it's also made for people who really know the pulps and love the pulps and engorge themselves on the pulps, because what this book really, really, really needs, that Chris Robinson is not doing, and I think should do. This is a device that I didn't think that would really work anymore, and kind of was proven by Remender in this week's Uncanny Avengers, is the use of kind of the omniscient narrator. Because, we get, okay, well, here's the Spider, and here's the Shadow, and here's, Green Hornet, and here's Black Bat, and here's Zorro. And who the hell are all these other guys? Who are all these other characters? Unless you know, you're lost. And that's where the problem is that this book could really have benefited from just a couple of, captions, a couple of title cards saying, okay, here we are, this is our location, these are the characters we see here. This is not an, I can appreciate that Robinson doesn't want to do maybe kind of what he feels maybe to be a kind of lowest common denominator thing, but this book is starting to feel really kind of snobbish in its in saying, well, if you don't know these characters, then you're kind of fucked, because there's no character key, there's no, I mean, even at the end of, at the beginning of just about every issue of, well, certainly every Marvel comic that's out there, it gives us a little synopsis of everything that's happened before. And, at the end, Dynamite will give you a little, preview of what's ahead, but doesn't say, okay, well, these are all the characters that are involved. And that's really pissing me off, because as much as I do love the pulps, and as much as I do believe that there are definitely certain characters I do know and I do recognize with ease, there are a lot of peripheral characters that are moving around here, and I don't know all of them. And to treat the reader as if you just should know who these people are, and if you don't know, well, then tough shit, that's not a good way to keep this story moving. Because if I can't identify with if I can't identify the characters, I can't identify with them. And if I can't identify with them, then the book is starting to lose me, which is the concern that I've had since kind of the second issue. It's because the first issue is so very clearly delineated, okay, these are the heroes we're working with here, and then all of a sudden it just started kind of branching out into all these different directions with all of these different heroes. And that is a problem. So I believe that, I don't know how many issues, I think there's 2 more issues of this left. I don't know if this is a 6-issue mini. I know it can't just be 5. I think it was originally just supposed to be 5, but it seems like this cannot, I mean, and that's another thing, is the book is too short. It's 22 pages. And 22 pages of this is not enough. Okay? I mean, Dynamite is smarter than this. I know that they know these characters really well, and they trust us to know some of these characters really well, but not giving us an opportunity to learn. Again, I'm not going to keep going on about this. It's just, it's very flawed. It's very flawed, despite the interesting things that are going on within it, despite the really pulpy, adventure-y stuff that's going on. And I love that. But let's, get this book more on a, I'm certainly not suggesting that it be dumbed down. I'm more suggesting that we simplify the story here. That we get all of our ducks in a row, as opposed to them just being all over the place and not knowing who exactly we're dealing with. So, Dennis Calero's art, though, I have to say, is really good. It works really well. I'm still pissed that Alex Ross isn't doing all the interiors like he was supposed to on this book, but whatever. I mean, I've come this far. I'm going to continue to go, even though I give this book a 3 out of 5. I barely recommend it. It's a very soft 3 out of 5 because, again, it is getting really irritating. But, and for a series I was looking so forward to, it hurts. So, moving along, Rocketeer, Hollywood Horror, #1. So this is Roger Dandridge, who I'm not familiar with, and J-Bone, who's an artist I am very familiar with. They give us their take on the Rocketeer, and particularly kind of his supporting cast, as we see, another adventure in Hollywood land in 1939 of Cliff Secord and Betty and Peavy. Sadly, some of the supporting cast from Cargo of Doom is not present. But they're trying to kind of make their own way, make their own mark, and we have this new character of Dahlia, who is kind of Betty's kind of intrepid reporter friend, who is looking into this story about this missing scientist that also may coincide with the rise of this kind of almost cultish leader and this very kind of Lovecraftian design that is being brought forth through this, into this book, and we get some really really terrific character moments, like because I mean the thing about Betty and Cliff is that they always seem to be fighting, which is one of the charms I think of this book, and of these characters. But of course, they always kind of come back together, because they know that they love each other and that they are not whole alone. That they, it's not, that they are just they're just so in love that they feel incomplete when the other is not present. And they get into this argument about, it seems like Betty wants Cliff to stop being the Rocketeer, but no, she actually wants to help him and be more of an active participant in his adventures rather than just kind of the damsel in distress. And Cliff forbids that. Just using the word forbid. Forbidding a woman to do anything. Wrong thing to say. And of course she storms off and says, I can do this all by myself. I don't, I can prove I'm just as tough and resourceful as Cliff is. And we do get some new characters here. We do see kind of these, kind of a flunky of, these kind of flunkies of Howard Hughes that have come because they want the jetpack back. And they're kind of holding Peavy hostage, sort of, and then they're kind of led away. Cliff leads them away, and we have these two, this man-woman detective team, kind of like, I don't know if it's supposed to be kind of like a riff on the Thin Man, that kind of Nick and Nora type of thing, but it's interesting, and again, this all kind of leads back to this this missing doctor, and it happens to be someone that Peavy knows. And so again, we get kind of this, tentacled Dark Lord that, that this kind of creepy cult leader type is looking to make sacrifices to, and everything like that. And that's kind of where the issue leads off. I mean, this is a really, really fun read. J-Bone, his art style really does suit a character like the Rocketeer very well. It's very super cartoony, and it's really fun to look at, and there's a lot of really fun kind of sexy moments, even in this kind of super cartoony art. It doesn't get, I mean, they've kind of really strayed away from the more pseudo cheesecakey stuff that Dave Stevens was doing when he was working on this book, and of course when he was still with us. But Dandridge, he makes the book really fun. It progresses well. It's well paced. It's fun. It's funny. There's some really good character moments. But the thing about this is, it just kind of, I think that they're kind of ramping up the more fun, cartoony aspects of it, because there seemed to be kind of overcompensating for a certain lack of, I'm just gonna call it a certain lack of style and panache and heart that Mark Waid and Chris Samney brought to it in Cargo of Doom. I mean, it's definitely not a matchup for the ages. I mean, it's not like this is one of those things where it's like, well, yeah, following Mark Waid and Chris Samney is going to be a really hard act to follow. And I got that sense here is that these guys are good, but they're not as good. And it's not, and it's unfair to compare the two, but that's inevitable. It's just going to happen. So I give it 4 out of 5. I mean, it is really entertaining, but like I said, it just feels like they're just overdoing it just a little too much. Now moving on to DC. And we will start with The Flash, number 17. This was a book, again, I was kind of on the financial fence about, because I know that I do have to start dropping some more books. I did not, I mean, even though all of my Marvel stuff is free, I didn't even read Uncanny X-Men number 2 this week, because it's like, I read a couple of pages of it, and I'm like, no. Because Chris Bachala's art just looks too meh. It looks bad. It just does. It just does not look good. It does not look like the work that he did so tremendously on Wolverine and the X-Men. And it's not another book that I just got such kind of a weird vibe from the first one. And anyway, but The Flash, again, kind of on the fence about, but, it's like I read the issue and I'm just like, okay, I'm definitely back on board here. Because basically what we have here is we have Flash and we have Grodd in a duel, winner-take-all, inside the Speed Force. And it's like, how cool is that idea? Because that's where, Flash kind of yanked him to in the last issue, is that they are now inside the Speed Force, and it's not quite even footing, because this is definitely a place where the Flash has the advantage. And you have the Rogues. They are doing what they can to actually save the city, to save Keystone. And, you have, these moments of, them doing these selfless and heroic things, which is just really strange, in the midst of, this this kind of epic fight that's going on in the Speed Force. We have, of course, with Patty, saving Daryl, the kind of, Barry's foster dad, if you will. I'm not really sure how that, I have to go back and kind of read from the beginning again how that all works. But, we have, we kind of know what's going to happen, is that, once Grodd is kind of taken out of the fight, I mean, even though he's still fighting, he's not fighting on the same plane of existence as the other gorillas are fighting on, and they eventually lose. They all start to split because they're all aware, hey, this was Grodd's fight, so we're just kind of his army. The generals left the field. You have that sense that they just become increasingly disillusioned, so they just don't need to stay anymore. They just want to get the hell out of there and stay free, or at least regroup for what will be probably another attack at some point in the future. The Flash, yes, he uses his brain more to take down Grodd, but Grodd is definitely taken down, and taken down hard, by using the elements of the Speed Force. And we even have Turbine getting in on the action on the ground, and we have a new potential rogue, maybe, in Turbine. And so we have kind of this, we have the Flash, has come back to kind of redeem himself in the way that, in the sense that, it's been a while since Barry was even thought to be alive. It's been a while since the Flash was even thought to be a hero, because of Dr. Elias's basically turning the entire city against him. We see kind of his kind of, his, kind of mad scientist machinations are, it's like they've been stopped, but only briefly. We get that sense there. And so we get, Patty and Barry are back together again. Barry is, declared alive, because he's been missing for a while, staying off the grid while he, gets to a point where not only, this is the part where he could say, yes, okay, I'm back now because the Flash is back and in full force. And he is, indeed the savior of Star City, or not of Keystone City. So the, just everything with the Rose, with the, with Flash, the stuff inside the Speed Force, and this significant little kind of emotional moment that happens when we see Patty kind of run into Barry's arms, and then there's Iris right there. And she just feels, you just get this sense that, yes, she's carrying something still for Barry. But at the very end, though, it seems like things are gonna start getting reversed. Yeah. So that was kind of the moment when I was reading through this and enjoying the shit out of it. Because, Francis Manapul, he makes this book look gorgeous. Just his panel construction, everything just looks great. He's one of the best guys that DC's got out there, and is not recognized, I don't think, nearly as much as someone like a J.H. Williams is, because of J.H. Williams. He just has this kind of overpowering talent as far as artistically, especially within the New 52. So, but we're not going to be seeing that much of it, at least not until the new Sandman series comes out. But all things being equal, this still would have been a really, really excellent book, but having that ending of this character finally being introduced into the New 52, it's like, oh boy, we are in for some serious shit now. And so this book is definitely going to keep going at full speed. Now, I thought I saw something about Manapul that he might not be doing art on this book for much longer, which would be really fucking sad, because he's one of the main reasons that I do read this book. He and Buccellato have done really, really solid plotting and writing and everything like that for the most part. There have been some off issues, of course. Every book has them, but but to have his art be a consistent presence, I think, is very important to this book. It's one of the things that holds, I think, the readers in. So I think to lose him would be a serious blow to this book. So I'm hoping that I just misread whatever it was that I did see that I thought said that he's not going to be drawing for the book much longer. But like I said, I don't read previews. I don't check and see what's coming up, what's coming next. If there's something of great importance, I tend to kind of, okay, I see it, it's there, and now I know. But, it's usually a really significant announcement. Now, something like Manapul leaving Flash might be kind of a minor thing, considering, but still, because when there's so many other superstar artists out there, David Finch, and his work on, and Jim Lee, when they leave something that's like, oh my god, but even though I'd rather look at anything by Francis Manapul just about any day of the week than I would, especially anything by David Finch. But Jim Lee, I'm absolutely looking forward to the work he's going to be doing with Snyder on Superman, but even if it was another artist, I'd be getting it. Jim Lee doesn't make or break a book for me. So anyway, it's just, this is a great team for this book of Buccellato and Manapul, and I would hate to see them leave it. That's all I'm really saying. As particularly with Manapul on art, though. Okay, so Justice League Dark, number 17. So I did finally read issue 16. I never got around to reviewing it. It was good. So what we have here is that our Dark Leaguers are still on Epoch, and basically what we have here is that, of course, Constantine, Madame Xanadu, who's of course aging very, very, very rapidly, is close to expiring. Frankenstein and Black Orchid and Deadman, who was alive and was then dead again, uh, are all being held captive by their the kind of science masters of Epoch. And basically we have Tim Hunter and Zatanna, who know that they through their dealings with this kind of underground magic army, that yes, indeed, their friends are being held captive, and Tim Hunter basically says, "Nuh-uh, I'm not going to have any more of this. We have an army, and we are going to let fly. Let's slip the dogs of war." But it's more like the dragons of war when you're coming to a magical army. I mean, let's face it. So, but there is also this external force that is on Earth that's, as, Dr. Peril and Steve Trevor and Tim Hunter's Dad Hunter are kind of looking into this, this alternate world and this, fabric that's kind of ripping apart at both worlds. So, there's some serious, there's some serious shit going down there right now on both planets. And, we have, Tim's army, hopefully coming to the rescue, Zatanna, really kind of bulking up their forces as best as she can, even if it's just an illusion. We do have this portent of doom that is told to the unable to lie Constantine about that he will be the one to order one of the Leaguers to their deaths, that he will give the word that will cause one of the Leaguers to die. And then we have just this final page where it's like, all fucking hell is about to break loose, and it's awesome. If there's anything that I can say about this book, if there's one thing I can say about this particular issue and about this title, is that who Jeff Lemire really loves in this book? He really loves Frankenstein. He loves Frank. As well he should, because Frank is awesome. But, just even, his work on Animal Man, bringing Frankenstein into Rot World and making him a Green Lantern. I mean, this is a guy, he definitely wants more Frankenstein. And was pissed, I think, that Agent of Shade got canceled. But Lemire was getting overextended, so I understood that it had to go to someone else, and I can't remember who it went to, but it was ultimately a book that I just couldn't stay into as much as when Lemire was writing it, because Lemire was clearly doing the superior work on that title. So that became a drop. But, it's just, this book, really exciting, fun, very well paced, really, nicely done character moves, and very, very, very tension filled. I mean, there's a lot of really, holy shit moments. Having a little trouble buying this kind of almost instantaneous change in the character of Tim Hunter, saying, okay, well, I'm not really supposed to be here, I'm not really a mage, and now I'm leading an army of, magics, of magically powered beings to fight, to free, the Leaguers. So it's just, with everything that's going on, this is building up to a really tense climax in the next issue. And maybe not everybody is going to survive. But I think we'll wait to count those chickens before they hatch, you know? So 4.5 out of 5. Mikhail Janin doing, again, awesome art on this issue. Ray Fox acclimating himself very well to this title. I'm glad that he's there to co-write because, again, Lemire very overextended right now and is only going to get more so. So, very, very happy with how this book is turning out ever since Lemire took it over. It's become one of my must-reads. So, absolutely 4.5 out of 5 for Justice League Dark. Now on to the picks of the week. One of them is there mostly for its presence for something that I read. And one of them is there because, yes, it's one of the books of the week. It is the book of the week, as a matter of fact. And those who know me probably will find no surprise in what it is. But anyway, so I will start with the book that is not the book of the week, and not even so much that close. It's pretty close. It had about as much of a chance as, I guess, any of the other kind of really, really solid titles that came out this week. And that is Batman Incorporated number 8. If you had told me a year ago, 2 years ago, we'll go back to the beginning of the New 52, if you had told me that a Grant Morrison DC book would be, that I would rate it this high, and that it would be amongst my books of the week, I would have told you you're fucking out of your mind, unless he's taken on some new title that he hasn't fucked up. Because I hated his Action Comics, I hated Batman Incorporated, I hate his run on Batman, but this was one issue that I had to read and had to get. So, and this, of course, is, you know, for those of you who have been who are into comics and have been living under a fucking rock, this, of course, is the issue that has the death of Damian Wayne. I'm still pissed at Grant Morrison for this, but I will say he wrote him out very, very well. Now, I'm going to be more talking about this in the abstract sense, because I don't know what's going on in this book. I have no idea what's going on with Leviathan. I don't know what significance Leviathan even has. I know that obviously it's a very powerful force in Gotham City. I don't know if it's something that is spearheaded by Talia. I don't know anything about Damian's clone, the kind of giant clone that he made of him. I don't know why Batman is in the safe underwater in his attempts to escape. And I don't know exactly how Robin fits in all of this, how Damian fits in all of this. What exactly is Talia's endgame here? I mean, yes, it seems like she's referring to Damian as a failed experiment. That, you know, basically kind of grown in a tube to subvert his father, to, you know, it's never made clear to me because I haven't read these other issues, but there are, the thing that I really grasped onto in this issue is that Morrison didn't fuck around. He didn't make things really weird and bizarre and twisted and psychotic and hallucinatory like he normally does with his titles, particularly with Batman, but that he wrote a very straightforward issue that he knew was going to have very serious ramifications in the future for the Bat family, and he did it with much respect, as opposed to just saying, you know what, I've been writing this character belongs to me, nobody else could have done what I did with this character, which is bullshit, because Peter Tomasi did a hell of a lot better with the character of Damian Wayne than he ever could have. And, you know, with respect to what Snyder's done, and, you know, the other writers of the Bat titles that have involved Damian have done, he made a statement that, yes, I will color within the lines this time, and I will give this moment the respect that it's due. And despite everything that is really great about this issue, Chris Burnham, who does the art here, does a really, really commendable job of basically aping Frank Quietly's art style, and creating some really interesting panel work. I mean, the book looks great, and, you know, there are these moments, you know, like when when Damian is there alongside Dick, and he says, you know, we were the best partnership when you were Batman, and, you know, and we were working together. We were the best partnership. And, you know, of course, Dick has this line, well, you know, hey, you know, can't, how could we not be awesome, you know? And it's just moments like that that really kind of just made this book really, really, really good. The only flaw, really, with this book is that the moment of Damian's death is something we've seen before. And he does go out in a kind of very righteous fashion in this, but it does echo back to the death of Jason Todd, where we do have this moment where, you know, he is doing his best to, you know, save the innocent people that are around him, and he does. He succeeds, but it just, because we have seen a Robin die before, it lacks the kind of just punch to the gut that this moment should have. And that's not really Morrison's fault, because he does, like I said, he gives Damian a warrior's death. And it's going to be very strange going forward. And obviously, you know, the internet is all abuzz with, well, who's going to be the next Robin? You know, this is something obviously that was talked about at ECCC, and, you know, there's no talk of Stephanie Brown. She is completely off the table. Cassandra Cain is kind of question marked as to whether or not she will appear at any time in the near future. The next several issues of Batman and Robin are going to be Batman and there will be different people that he'll be teaming up with, like Red Hood, like Catwoman, like I think there's going to be a Nightwing. I think there's going to be a Red Robin team up. I don't know if there's going to be a Batman and Batgirl. That would be kind of cool, but that's, I know, the next 4 issues. And then I know with Snyder that his next couple of issues are, definitely one of them is going to be dealing with this loss. A lot of the books that are going to be coming, the first one going to be coming out this week, which is Detective Comics, that will be dealing with the loss of Damian and Bruce's sentiment about, you know, Bruce's coming to that, you know, just, you know, basically, you know, the grieving process is what we're going to see play out over the next several months, and probably maybe even the next year of this title. I know that Snyder is planning on bringing Harper Row back for a couple of issues. There are going to be a couple of issues that are going to kind of stand alone. It's going to be more of a salute to the animated series. And then a new arc, I think, is going to start in like issue 20 or 21 that is really going to kind of take off from where this book kind of leads us to, which is, you know, because I think we're going to get some of that, like I said, with Snyder's next issue, with Snyder Capullo's next issue, and we're going to get some of that with, you know, next issue of Batgirl. You know, as far as the other titles, you know, when James Tynion starts writing Red Hood and the Outlaws, I'll be looking at that. So I don't know exactly how it's going to play out in books like Detective and The Dark Knight, you know, immediately, but I think we'll get a sense for that pretty soon. But other than that, like, I have to say, even though by comparison this doesn't have the impact that it should, and that was, you know, I think, like, even with the, you know, in 1988 when, you know, the readers killed Jason Todd, I think that's where, I think, you know, because the media kind of fucked that up, I think that this also got fucked up. So it's, you know, it's sad, but it's true. There is, you know, it did take some of the wind out of the sales of this book, of this issue, but all in all, a really, really, really solid book, and a 4.5 out of 5. Not a 5 out of 5, so it's not perfect, but it's pretty damn close. So again, this kind of eked into near the top spot because of its significance. Moving on to Book of the Week, and that is I, Vampire, number 17. I mean, it is, in a sense, like many of the great shows, many of the great serialized books, you know, and, you know, that are coming to an end. You can, you can do whatever the hell you want. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. You can, you know, just as long as, of course, it fits with what is going on naturally. You know, I mean, when shows kind of get their final seasons, that is ultimately when those shows tend to be at their best, is when they can throw caution to the wind and they can do whatever they want to do with their peripheral characters and even with their main characters. So that's where kind of the fear begins with this book, is because in this issue we do have, you know, our vampires. We do have, you know, Andrew, and we have Tig, and we have, you know, his kind of, you know, his little, you know, magical buddy, and we have, you know, kind of the keeper of the armory for the Van Helsings. You know, they are the vampires, and then we have our vampire fighters, you know, in, you know, John Troughton, in Mary Seward, in Deborah Dancer, and John Constantine. And there were some moments in this book in which, you know, basically, you know, Andrew Bennett has taken control of the House of Mystery, and he's not planning on letting that go. And when each character enters the House of Mystery, they are greeted by not necessarily the sins of their past, but the demons of their past. And that is really what's going on here. As each of them enters, Deborah enters, and she confronts Mishkin, who is, of course, you know, for those of you who know, Mishkin was part of the original trio of, you know, Andrew Bennett, Deborah Dancer, and Mishkin in the original J.M. DeMatteis, Tom Sutton, I, Vampire stories within the House of Mystery comic. Those aren't great stories. But it did create a really compelling character. It did create a trio of really compelling characters, or a quartet, really, with, of course, Mary, Queen of Blood, being the fourth. But, you know, they were all against Mary, and now Mary is fighting on the side of right. So, you know, again, Deborah enters. She sees Michigan, who is kind of zombified. You know, John enters, or I should say, Troughton enters, and there's his grandmother, who confesses that she had you know, erotic feelings for other women. And then Andrew steps in and says, well, I guess it runs in the family. So we finally get the last peek into John Troughton's mind, is that, and something that, you know, doesn't matter as far as the character is concerned, but it does give him an extra layer of personality that, and it's not something that's really been hinted at, but you really kind of have to go back and kind of reread some of the issues where, yeah, it's pretty possible, and it's an entirely logical conclusion to make that John Troughton is gay, and that he does have romantic feelings despite himself about Andrew Bennett. And that is ultimately what Andrew uses against him. And when Mary enters the house, it is, you know, kind of, you know, her literally meeting, you know, kind of the sins of her own past catching up with her. You know, she's confronted by the myriad of dead, you know, that lay dead at her feet, you know, that she's responsible for the deaths of. And Tig, you know, is confronted by Constantine, who, of course, like and true to Constantine, true to his character, he does have lots of tricks up his sleeve, and one of them is that of the, well, turning an enemy into an ally. And of course, amidst all of this, we have Cain, who is doing whatever he can with the piece of the Tower of Babel to release Lilith, his bride, from hell. So what does that bring us to going forward? And then we have two incredibly shocking moments. One of them, unfortunately, with John Troughton, and the other with, I would have never, ever expected this. And it's such a awesome moment, and just a breathtaking, and it's like, oh my god, did that really just fucking happen? Oh shit, oh fuck, oh my god. Oh my god. And it did. It happened. Shit. And then you have a little bit of a shout out to the Princess Bride. And see, that's the thing about this book, is that despite yourself, even in its darkest and most shocking moments, it still tends to kind of give you this moment of, yeah, I'm going to throw in a little bit of humor here, because it's just kind of sick. Because Josh Fialkoff does love his kind of inappropriately timed humor moments, particularly when they're coming from a character that is of a villainous nature. Now, of course, the character that this is coming from is not, you know, was not always a villain, but, you know, definitely is now. And oh my god, yes, it was the first book I read this week, and there was nothing else that beat it. I mean, I just knew from reading this issue, this, like, okay, yeah, this is going to be book of the week. There's, you know, I didn't make my judgments based upon that. I just said to myself, yeah, this issue is so awesome. Again, of course, still missing Andrea Sorrentino, but Fernando Blanco, who does step in, does the art here, does a much better job than a lot of his predecessors after, basically after Sorrentino left the book to start doing Green Arrow. Sorrentino will be back for, I know, at least the final issue. I don't know if he's coming back for the penultimate issue, issue 18, but of course it ends with issue 19, so I know that he's going to be coming back for that, but God almighty, this book was just awesome. And yes, if you didn't know by now, yeah, Josh Fialkoff is a huge Pixies fan. And it's almost kind of the rhythm of these books. Also, it's kind of a loud, quiet, loud in these books as well. And I think I think that may be me reading a little bit too much into it, but hey, that's what I do. That's what you pay me for, right? You're not paying me anything. Why the fuck am I talking to you people? No, I'm kidding. So, yeah, 5 out of 5 for iVampire. Totally awesome and totally unexpected and totally wild and just absolutely stunning from beginning to end. Just wow. So that's it for this week of New Comics, bitches! So we are coming back next week, of course, for another installment. So thank you all for watching. Again, yeah, we're at an hour 31 right now. So comment below, like it, dislike it, wherever that is. Well, I mean, I know that's still below, but if you're watching this on your phone or on your tablet, I know that sometimes it's up at the top. So anyway, it was fun to do this. It's fun to do this every week, pretty much, except on the nights when I'm not feeling it, in which case I don't do it. Because I'd rather do this having fun than doing it feeling like, because I've done that and that sucks. You didn't like it, I didn't like it, nobody liked it. So just moving forward, there's not really a lot coming out this week. So like this week, hopefully it'll be, I shouldn't say hopefully, I mean, because I always love lots of comics, but we'll see what, I'm kind of, in this moment where I am kind of reevaluating my choices and what I'm reading and so on and so forth, and just seeing what absolutely needs to stay and what things can kind of go. Ultimate X-Men is really on the cusp. If the next issue doesn't help pick things up, I'm probably going to say goodbye to it. Like I said, even though it's not something that I'm spending any money on. But, just from a DC standpoint, like Phantom Stranger is one of those books that seems to be on the cusp, but then it kind of hooks me back in. So that will be, maybe that will just go to trade on that. Aquaman, I'm probably going to just go to, I think I am going to continue to read that book because I do really like what Johns has been doing with this. But I just, I don't think it's the kind of thing that I want to be shelling out $2.99 even with my 20% off, especially with all these other upcoming books that, are looking like, oh my God, I have to read this. So, and, with the Image titles, I mean, it's, I did drop Thief of Thieves. I said, yeah, this book just really isn't working for me. It just hadn't worked really well since Nick Spencer departed. So, again, I mean, Marvel, it's just more of a time thing. At this point in time, it's just, I don't really know if I want to be wasting my time reading these and then just come back and tell you how much they sucked, or even, how good that it could have been, might have been, or maybe even is. So, we'll see. Like I said, we'll see. If you even have some suggestions of stuff that that I'm reading and that you should say, well, yeah, you probably shouldn't be reading this. One of them, first of all, don't make it Superior Spider-Man. I am going to continue to read it, like I said, until that book does go off the rails, which if it does continue like it did in issue 4, then yes, I will be not reading that anymore. But like I said, just some suggestions, some things that you think maybe I should not be reading anymore because either A, you don't care overwhelmingly, or B, you just, it's like, why are you reading this book? So, but I mean, I do have to say that the majority of that kind of is coming from Marvel right now. So dropping things from DC is kind of hard. So anyway, I'm really done now. So again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. It's always a pleasure for me to do this. Like I said, it's always a huge, tremendous joy for me when I get your feedback and eventually get to answer them. I know that I should be watching more of your guys' videos. I look forward to them. It's just that sometimes, you know, you get so caught up in whatever the hell that you're doing that you kind of forget to leave your own kind of comfort zone there. I don't know why I'm so bothered about my hair tonight, so I'm going to leave right now. So, again, thank you for watching. This has been James. I'm James Donnelly. This has been the Shadow Gallery, saying good night to you all and reminding you all, as always, to stay in the shadows.